Everybody, today is Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. This is the meeting of the Rules, Confirmation, and Public Elections Committee. I am detecting a quorum with myself, Vice Chair Cash, Council Members Druffel, Chair Evans, Councilmember Rutherford, and Dr. Weiner present. Happy birthday, by the way. Perfect. So, pursuant to Tennis Code annotated section 844-112, time is set aside at the beginning of public meetings for public comments. Today we have one person signed up for public comments, Mr. Steve Ryder. And without further ado, Mr. Ryder, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I don't know, there's a reappointment of a person, Ed Henley, but there wasn't a questionnaire submitted, so I hope he's not up for consideration today. I know he's a reappointment, so we might just say, look at my previous submittal. I did want to say that I'd like to see added in there, not just, are you a lobbyist, but do you have a Metro contract? I think that's very relevant. That's not a question that is asked, but I think it should be. Another issue that I want to bring up, John Rutherford is on the Homeless Planning Council, and I didn't have a chance to talk with him earlier, but the Homeless Planning Council, of course, the Homeless Planning Council is called a board and commission of Metro, but they do not go before this body or the council. To me, they are an independent group. The issue has come up because there are homeless people who are attending meetings and get paid through MDHA. Now that it's been transferred to Office of Homeless Services, Metro Legal has said, oh, we can't pay you because we can't pay people on boards and commissions. It's a little different, the Election Commission, but we can't pay you. My position is I don't believe that the Homeless Planning Council is a board or commission. It's called a council for a reason. And so I would say that if I'd like to see the people continue to get paid to go to meetings and have Metro Legal address that issue. I think that's, it's important. It's no reflection on anybody here, but I think that that's just important. And just a quick thing on traffic and parking, I really think we should have a parking authority. I don't think the way things are set up here makes a lot of sense. I'll leave it at that. Hopefully, I'll see you later and we'll talk about various issues. But good to see everybody again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I do not get paid for HBC. I just want to make that clear.
I said homeless representatives. I'm sorry.
Perfect. Well, that concludes our public comment portion. Thank you, Mr. Ryder, for your comments. We'll definitely take it into consideration and look forward to working with you on those things. Okay, moving forward, now we are on resolutions, and looking at our agenda, we have 2 resolutions before us. Before I read those into the record, is there anything that anybody wishes to remove from consent? Because both of these will be on consent.
Number 1, just to make comment.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just roll through them then. So first on the agenda is RS 2025-1102, a resolution honoring Edna Murray on her retirement from the Operation Stand Down Tennessee. Sponsors Rutherford, Hancock, and others. And so we do have discussion on this one. So. Councilman Druffel, you're recognized.
Yeah, I just having spent time on the Veterans Caucus with Councilman Rutherford, she's been a pretty spectacular lady. Has taken over and done some great things. We could keep on going with it, but maintaining and continuing the operations to stand down was a pretty incredible feat. So just really appreciate her effort. Just want to make those comments, and we got a chance to spend a lot of time with her in some work we did early on, and she's a real hero. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
And ditto to everything Councilmember Druffel said. The stand-down organization is very important to Metro. We have a very close working relationship with the organization, as our Office of Veteran Services is located there, operates out of there. So that relationship is really vital for veterans in need, in particular homeless veterans and those seeking employment. There's a lot of veterans who are sort of borderline, if you will, that seek assistance. The veteran community knows to go to Stand Down. And so Stand Down is just so vital in many different ways. And Eden Murray, a retired Brigadier General from the Air Force, has been running that organization in an exceptional manner, and it's big shoes to fill. And so this is the least that we can do to recognize that.
Thank you all for bringing this forward. And did I say Edna or Eden Murray before?
It's Eden Murray.
Okay, I meant to say Edna, but yes, Eden Murray. Thank you for that. Any other comment? We'll move to vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 6 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Next, we have RS 2025-1103, a resolution recognizing March 31st, 2025 as Transgender Day of Visibility in Nashville and Davidson County. Sponsors Hill, Benedict, Gadd, Bradford, and others. Any discussion on this item? Councilmember Hill, do you want to speak to this resolution?
I don't really have anything to say other than I am the only trans woman elected in the entire state, and I'm just trying to bring some visibility to all the trans people in the community and try to be as visible and up forward as I can. So,
Thank you for bringing this forward.
Thanks.
We'll move to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Thank you so much. Happy birthday, Chair James. Wow. All right, next we have late filed late filed items. First on this portion is late filed amendment to RS 2025-1067 by council members Catt, Porterfield, and Gamble. This is an amendment to a resolution approving a preliminary engineering agreement between CXS Transportation Incorporated, a Virginia corporation with its principal place of business in Jacksonville, Florida, and the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to facilitate the replacement of an existing bridge on Eastland Avenue. I am not seeing any, but I will recognize Matt Purvis from NDOT on this one.
Thank you, Chair. So the reason for the late file is multifaceted, because this bill originally was deferred because it needed extra time for planning commission consideration. During that deferral, CSX had a single additional line to add to the agreement. So we filed the timely filed amendment for it that was approved in committees yesterday. And in the process of us using their new language, the new exhibit they had sent back to us, they had neglected to send back the maps as a part of the exhibit with their new version. So this is the late filed amendment to add those attachments back. The reason for the late file being that if it's delayed, it would just further push back the project to repair and replace the bridge.
And I see that this bridge is on Eastland Avenue, just west of Riverside Drive.
That's correct.
What's the current state of the bridge?
I believe it is fair condition, which is where it's the last before it gets poor. So it's where we like to be repairing them before they get to a poor condition.
That's fair, okay. Especially being right off of Riverside, that's a pretty high traffic road. Okay. Having heard the late filed nature of the amendment with the exhibits, we'll vote on a suspension of Rule 13. Any discussion on that from you? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. I don't believe we need to take a vote on the full bill, so we will continue to move forward. Next is a late filed amendment to BL 2025-725 by Councilmember Webb. This is an ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, the zoning ordinance of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County by changing from RS 20 to SP zoning for property located at 215 1 Mile Parkway, approximately 1,200 feet west of Gallatin Pike, to permit 78 multifamily residential units, all of which is described herein.
Chair, is that 87 or 78?
What did I say?
87. You said 78.
87, there we go, dyscalculia. Yes, so that, to permit 87 multifamily units. And I do see Councilmember Webb present here. So yes, Councilmember Webb,
Okay,
could
so-
you tell us about the nature of the late file?
The reason this is late is because NDOT and the developer, no fault of the developer, were working on a dollar amount to add sidewalks and how much they were gonna do. And unfortunately, NDOT did not get back with the developer until last night. And I got the developer on the phone with NDOT, and they had the agreement last night, so that's why it was filed late.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. And then I had a question earlier about saying that it is an 87 multifamily residential unit. I think that sort of begs my question, but my general question as it relates to the inclusion of fees in lieu for providing sidewalks, have you had any discussions with counsel at Metro Legal just to make sure that we're not running afoul of the recent decision as it relates to the sidewalks and Metro having to?
Well, I'm pretty sure NDOT probably did.
Okay.
Yeah.
That works with me. Okay, so we've heard the late file, or the reason for the late file. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? Got 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Okay, next we have bills on second reading. This is, actually, I'm gonna roll this to the hill because I know that Councilmember Sepulveda is stuck in either GovOps or she's stuck in another committee. So we'll roll this one to the hill. So moving forward, we've got board and commission elections. The first one is to the advisory committee on transportation. These were folks that we interviewed last meeting. Unless there's any person that we wish to discuss in depth, I'm going to place them all on consent for one vote.
Okay.
Is there any objection?
Nope.
Chair, I'll need to abstain.
Okay. Which one will you be abstaining from?
Amy Scruggs.
Okay. So we'll take Amy Scruggs separately. So for purposes of the record, so we are voting on consideration of nominees for 5 vacancies to the advisory committee with terms lasting 2 years. An election to be filled. An election to fill the vacancies will take place at the March 18th, 2025 council meeting. So we will, our first vote will be on Caitlin Russell, nominated by myself, Trent Ben, nominated by Councilmember Cortez, Dr. Claudio Moss, nominated by Councilmember Evan Siegel, John Wesley Smith, nominated by Councilmember Horton, Matt Ingram, nominated by Councilmember Rutherford, Isaac Swafford, nominated by Councilmember Porterfield, Dr. Morgan Reinberg, nominated by Councilmember Coopin, as well as David Harris, nominated by Councilmember Gamble. All those will be for consolidated votes. Is there any opposition to the consolidated vote? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? You got 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. And now for the nomination of Amy Scruggs, nominated by Councilmember Huffman. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 1 not voting. So we've got 6 in favor, 0 against, 1 not voting. Okay. Next, we are moving to. One second, let me orient myself really quickly. Next, we are moving to board and commission appointees and nominees. Candidates in this category will be subject to interview by us and then a re-referral by rule. Wait. Okay, yeah, that's correct. Interviewed by us today and referred to our next committee meeting by rule. First, we have the Civil Service Commission reappointment of Jason Evans for a term expiring on March 31st, 2030. Mr. Evans, come forward. Would you like a parking validation?
Huh?
Would you like a parking validation?
I probably would. I'm probably violating some kind of parking. Not knowing it anyway.
Yeah, well, thank you for being here this evening. Are you currently a Davidson County resident?
Yes.
And do you serve on any other boards or commissions other than what you're being reappointed to here today?
I do not.
Okay. So tell us about why you want to continue serving.
So first of all, I think my background and experience, 40 years in the government, more specifically in the Army, but my exposure to both civil servants, contractors, and military personnel, 30 years of that was spent in the HR. The other 10 was spent managing what we call our cities, the installations. In fact, I was a city mayor in Hampton running our installations, and my culminating assignment was budget management for $18 billion and 141 installations worldwide. So I understand people, first of all, and I understand people in organizations and complex organizations, and those dynamics are not just specific to military. So I've worked with Foreign Nationals. I'm the director of Multinational Forces Iraq, where we managed all coalition forces and all services. So I think I can bring a perspective. I think I have brought a perspective that's added value to the commission.
Wonderful. And I'll say, I remember earlier this term, whenever you came before this committee to be appointed to this commission, and your resume and experience speaks for itself. So thank you for your willingness to continue serving.
Appreciate it.
Any questions from the committee?
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chair?
Yes.
I just think it's worth noting, General Evans's new position he's heading into as the new CEO of Operation Stand Down, which was mentioned previously.
Oh, okay.
Congratulations, yes, yes. Doing all of the things,
Well,
yeah.
it's good to be back working with and for my tribe, as I would say.
Most definitely. We very much appreciate it. Okay, anything further from the committee? Seeing none, we will go ahead and move to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? We've got 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Thank you so much. All right, next we have the Nashville Education, Community, and Arts Television Board reappointment of Sam Brooks for a term expiring on February 5th, 2028.
I believe he's
Oh,
withdrawn.
wait, yes, that is withdrawn. Yeah. Next, we have the Planning Commission reappointment of Edward Henley for a term expiring on March 31st, 2029.
He's in the other room. I'll go back.
All right, Mr. Henley, thank you for being here. Would you like a parking validation?
Yes, always.
Are you currently a Davidson County resident?
I am.
And do you serve on any other boards or commissions other than what you're being reappointed to here today?
So just to state it clearly, I'm on the Planning Commission. I am the Planning Commission's representative on the Parks Board, and then I'm on the Open Space and Greenways Committee as well, related to the Parks Board.
I don't think that's a conflict in the slightest. Okay, perfect. So tell us a little bit about why you want to continue serving.
Absolutely. Well, I would say this, I'm a Nashville native. I've had the chance to see the city grow in an inordinate amount of ways, even ways that I wouldn't have expected. But also being in the land use profession, in the real estate and construction space, I was candid about this when I first applied for this role. I critiqued a lot of things that the city did, and I was one of the first people who said, well, if I can point a finger, I can raise my hand. And I raised my hand and thought that the opportunity to serve on the Planning Commission would be a great way to continue to serve the city. I served on the previous mayor's Affordable Housing Task Force, and following that role have had a great and deep passion for continuing that work. I know our city is experiencing a housing crisis like many others, but housing is not our only challenge, and figuring out more and more about what all the planning department has the capability to do and influence has further encouraged me to want to continue my service.
Thank you for that. And so with your current term of service, how do you feel you've done with attendance? Have you been able to be there to ensure that there's a quorum and everything?
Absolutely. I feel like I've done well. I will be candid with everybody. I've missed 1 or 2 meetings, but I feel like the staff there is great as far as reaching out and coordinating that, working with myself and other planning commissioners, and I feel like I won't have an issue continue to serve well and make at least 90-ish% of those meetings.
And I do see here on your questionnaire, there we go, that you clearly state that there are some matters that would come before you that you would need to recuse yourself from. Have you had the experience of having to recuse yourself from any votes or discussions thus far?
Yes, I have. My firm has been active with the East Bank for many years, even from the early planning stages. Just kind of know anything that comes up related to that topic specifically. I've been just recusing myself or attending at a later period so discussion could happen without my presence.
Anything from the committee? Former Councilmember Withers, I see you standing at attention. Anything that you wish to add?
Just here to support Commissioner Henley. It was a pleasure serving with him on the commission when I was the council's rep in that role. I think he brings a lot of experience to our commission. Certainly the work with the Parks Board. I know a lot of council members often really want Metro rezoning to work with Metro Parks, for instance, and there are some technical challenges that go with that in the back end. And really appreciate Commissioner Henley being willing to serve on both of those commissions and try to work through some of those issues so that we can get the development quality and quality of life that council members are seeking in a rezoning. Yes, Chair.
I actually wanted to center on planning, elevate a conversation that I've had with former council member Withers, specific to like small area studies. I'm going through a small area study kind of reckoning right now, because one was done prior to my service, and now we're in the execution phase of like, what does it look like to develop this land where we have this study, and we're facing, the developer's facing a lot of challenges kind of related to some of the topographical issues that are there. And so I don't know kind of how to best sync up like these planning conversations related to, like, in theory, like, this is gonna be awesome, but then the reality comes and it smacks everybody kind of in the face and in the wallet and all that stuff. So whatever influence that the commission can have kind of related to that, I think would be helpful, or at least being aware, and you probably are aware based on, you know, your background as a developer. But I've had one conversation so far about it, and I'm sure that there will be others, you know, as we move forward with the projects that I've got coming.
Absolutely. And Chair, if I may, I'm happy to continue those conversations personally. It is part of the role that I think where we have a responsibility to create and enforce policy that is also applicable and deliverable to the community. Community gives their time and they entrust us with a lot of responsibilities in that space. The unfortunate thing is you have a plan and then it becomes very difficult to execute that plan, or it becomes very delayed. And so I think there's both education and execution that we have responsibility for in the planning department.
Hopefully my projects will be on the agenda at the end of the month or beginning of April or end of April. So, but I'll probably be highlighting that and whatever my remarks are, but just wanted to make that comment as I was looking Brett in the face and remembering the discussion we had. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Good to see you. How do we reconcile some of the increased traffic coming from these increased development? I know, I mean, there's some hard and difficult choices. And there's places we're seeing it where there's no really solution from a traffic solution. How do you plan, or what would you think of what we have to do to reconcile, making sure there's a better balance?
Well, I think one very strategic shift that went from kind of our traditional, traffic study is now the multimodal transit assessments, which are now part of our processes, which I think are honestly much more appropriate for our city and where we are. I think the thing that I've heard a lot of, and now honestly get to experience as well as a practitioner, is we have to do a much better job of being holistic in our approach. The one signal, one kind of modification at a time, it's better than nothing, but I think a holistic strategy and a much more dedicated approach to taking those things into consideration. I know that's on our agenda and part of how we're moving forward, but to me, I think it's part of what we owe to the community. Far too often we have specific private projects that are tasked with trying to solve those things, and their limitations, or at least their focus, is kind of just right in front of their property line, and appropriately so. But our challenges, particularly with our city, they're much more corridor specific and small area specific and entire community specific. And so just finding ways to continue to engage in that way. Traffic's usually never fun to talk about. However, it's the thing that gets people the most energized when you're having a conversation. Oh, yeah. And so finding a way to harness that energy and really come up with, again, back to the education and execution component. How do we educate our community on what we're trying to do, and how can they educate us on what something we may be either missing or can improve upon?
Yeah, thanks. I would appreciate going back and considering how we make more of a regional approach. I'm from the west side, and White Bridge has cut everybody off. And so how do you build a better strategic plan when all the development comes from a certain area? Because individually they may not add incrementally, but cumulatively they add a lot. And so what we're seeing is pretty big traffic jams. So I appreciate you just considering that more in the future. Okay.
Anything further from the committee? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? Got 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Next, we have the sexual-oriented business licensing board appointment of Metropolitan for a term expiring on November 9th, 2027.
I didn't expect this,
Yes. Mr. Kecklick, thank you for being here.
thank you for having me.
Would you like a parking validation?
If you don't mind, I'll...
Not at all. Are you currently a Davidson County resident?
I am.
And do you serve on any other boards or commissions other than what you're being appointed to here today?
No, I did not.
Okay, perfect. So tell us a little bit about why you want to serve.
My name is Mesut. I'm from Turkey, but I'm Kurdish. I have lived in Nashville like since 2015, and I'm participant of the last My City Academy. So that gave me opportunity to see what's going on with the city and how can I serve the city. The only reason I would love to serve the city, not just live as a resident and also be part of the any council. That's the only reason. So that's why I said like I didn't expect that. So I'm kind of excited.
Fair enough. Yeah, perfect. And then looking at your experience, both professionally and personally, how do you think that you will be able to be an asset for Nashville?
I have been in the restaurant business since 2018. I have restaurants. It's called Odessa. I don't know if you heard that. So it's Mediterranean restaurant. So I'm already in the business. So I think immigration view, which is and business as a business owner, we would help to be more productive to that commission. I hope also.
Fair enough. And what would you say has been one of the challenges that you faced as a business owner that you think you can help other business owners navigate?
For my location, I would say kind of crime, which as we discussed before with a couple of the police departments. So because of our location, we got some complaint about from our customer. They want to come more, but they don't feel safe. So this is what I heard. They want to come, let's say, like every week, but because of the concern safety, they don't come a lot. So also, I can tell based on my business, there is a bar which is not good for the environment. We were trying to discuss with the owner, but he didn't do anything. I don't know if you check, you will see there is a lot of crime. So I think if you make more safety to area, then that business would be more successful.
Fair enough. And you said that you own a Turkish restaurant currently?
It's Turkish Kurdish, yeah.
Okay, perfect. What's the name of the restaurant?
It's called Odessa. I don't know how you heard that.
Odessa. Any good?
No. We will go another restaurant.
We can personally attest to it being very good.
Perfect. Good to know. Yes.
I was there a couple of weeks ago.
Wonderful. Anything from the committee? Perfect. Thank you for your willingness to serve. We'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? We got 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Next, we also have the sexual-oriented business licensing board reappointment of Amna Osman for a term expiring on October 10th, 2028. Ms. Osman, would you like a parking validation?
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Are you currently a Davidson County resident?
Yes.
And do you serve on any other boards or commissions other than what you're being reappointed to here today?
I actually am the chair of the Ending the HIV Epidemic Advisory Council for Metro, the health department.
And I don't believe, well, since you're being reappointed, I don't believe there is a conflict there. Well, completely separate things. So tell us a little bit about why you want to continue serving.
So I have been serving this last term, and I think it's really important. You know, my experience, I've been in public health over 30 years in HIV, sexually transmitted infections, human trafficking, And so this board, making sure that we have licensing, regulation, and control over sexually oriented businesses and establishments is really critical and important. So we can continue for these businesses to be viable in our community, but also to hold them accountable and to make sure that people who are on this board really understand our role and what we need to do, and really making sure that we keep the individuals that are performing safe and responsible, but also the establishments really having some, regulations and control over what needs to happen in these establishments. So I think my experience of 30 years and, having lived here in the last 5 years and been on this board, we've been able to really make some good regulations and control measures with some of the establishments that we have, been auditing and looking and requiring them to make some changes. For example, some of them just recently had, I think, products that they were putting in windows where children were coming by, and so really making sure that those were not visible to children and appropriate. We've also had, through the due diligence of doing these background checks, have found some individuals not appropriate, and so we were able to make sure that we informed them, but then also letting the establishments know. And so I think it's been something that I think has really helped businesses thrive, but also being held accountable.
I can appreciate that. I mean, everybody here has heard me talk about how I appreciate the health and all policies standpoint, and specifically as it relates to communicable diseases, incentivizing knowledge, treatment, and prevention. And so you having that knowledge base and understanding that, I think, is definitely of a net benefit and asset for Metro as a whole. So anything further from the committee? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Okay, next we have the Solid Waste Region Board appointment of Frederick Cawthon for a term expiring on January 1st, 2031.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Mr. Cawthon, thank you for being here. Would you like a parking validation?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Are you currently a Davidson County resident?
I am.
And do you serve on any other boards or commissions? Yeah, do you serve on any other boards or commissions?
I do.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about why you want to serve.
So I would start out with saying that not only here locally but globally we have a waste problem. Also, there's a plethora of technologies that have come available over the last, say, 5 to 10 years. And I currently, for the last 7 years, have been focused on sustainable circular economy. As an example, I'm working with Oak Ridge right now, and we're pulling in 2 builders where we want to look at construction waste to new products. And so, to sum it up, I want to be a part of that discussion of how we reimagine managing waste. When you look at waste, we're putting value, energy into the ground that can be used in so many different ways. And just with my background, this is my home. I love this city. Right? I'm not originally from Nashville. My dad was Navy. We moved here from Jacksonville, Florida, right when I graduated from high school in '87. Went to TSU. This is home. And with the significant growth that's going on that we see no stopping going to, we're going to have to get better with how we manage waste and how we extract value from that versus just putting it in the ground. And so when the mayor's office contacted me about the fact that there was an opening, it was like, yes, and I find myself here with you today.
Most definitely. And I think that we're all sort of acutely aware that Nashville and Tennessee is quickly approaching a threshold as it relates to solid waste management.
And how do we divert that? I'm here for that discussion.
Exactly. So yeah, because that was going to be my question is, do you, at least at this point, do you have any thoughts on like how we navigate this space and how we can continue to move forward in navigating this issue?
So as I mentioned, there is multiple technologies, but to give you a scenario of what's, I'm going to say is a dream, is so got the problem with the landfill in Rutherford County, right? Okay, I'm not even gonna go there. But also, I'm aware that the city has a goal of having all non-emergency vehicles carbon neutral by 2050. There are solutions that we can divert waste, turn that waste off into renewable energy, being electricity, renewable diesel. As I understand it, the current fleet that the city has is obviously, majority of it is still diesel. There's some hybrids we've invested in that would be both diesel and electric, and then we've made some smaller investments off into purely electrical vehicles. For us to meet the 2050 mandate, that would be replacing the entire fleet and all of those capital costs to meet that mandate. Well, using just the technology that I'm thinking of, which is pyrolysis, you have the ability to divert your waste, turn that into both renewable electricity, renewable diesel, which renewable diesel, it's a technical term, it's a drop-in fuel, meaning that it's not biodiesel where I'm having to modify the infrastructure on my vehicles. No, it's synthetic diesel that is straight dropped in. If the city was to implement that capability, you could literally avoid and push out those capital costs just by diverting your waste, our waste, and using the outtakes from the waste.
I think that's a very important consideration.
So that's just one use case of many that I would love for us to explore as a city. Yes.
Most definitely. Anything for the committee? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? Got 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have the parking and the Traffic and Parking Commission appointment of Lisa Haller for a term expiring on April 3rd, 2030. Ms. Haylard, thank you for being here. Yes. Would you like a parking validation?
Thank you, sir.
Are you currently a Davidson County resident?
Yes,
And do you serve on any other boards or commissions other than what you're being appointed to today?
I serve on the Nashville Parks Foundation, which is not an official board, but does have an MOU, or is working on an MOU between Metro Parks Board and the Parks Foundation.
I don't think that's a conflict, so, okay, perfect. So tell us a little bit about why you want to serve.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all for having us here today. My interest and desires, really, I come to it from 3 areas, 3 levels. Personally, I am a major proponent and advocate for public safety, particularly as it pertains to pedestrians and to drivers, in all areas of Nashville. I have had the opportunity to live and work in cities and towns all across the United States, so I bring a perspective of seeing what other cities and municipalities have done in handling traffic and parking situations. And thirdly, I'm professionally retired, but I have made a commitment to give back to my community here in Nashville. Over the last 5 to 7 years, I've been working very closely in my former role as I kind of started this work as then council member Freddie O'Connell's beautification commissioner for District 19. So I served in that role, also on the board of Neighbor to Neighbor, and currently the unofficial president of the Midtown Music Road neighborhood group. So I'm very active already on these issues. I work very closely with NDOT, with Matt, who was just here, Brad, Diana, Andrew, the whole crew. So I've worked with Councilmember Cash quite a bit, Councilmember Coopin, and Councilmember Terry Bowe. All 3 council members are part of our neighborhood group. So I have already been very active in advocating for safer streets, safer sidewalks, more accessibility, et cetera.
You're definitely very involved, yes.
Yes.
And I think it speaks for itself. Yeah, I think your resume and involvement very much speak for itself, and I appreciate a commitment to pedestrian infrastructure and pedestrian safety, because for the past 2 years we've seen far too high a number of pedestrian deaths, so I appreciate your commitment to that. Anything from the committee on this one?
I just want to, as a council member who has worked with Lisa on many things, I can vouch for what she said, that she is definitely active and a strong advocate for public safety and good public policy. And I guess I want to ask, like, this is traffic and parking, and I have struggled in my area, which you know, with parking issues. And, you know, I got 2 big universities, one of which is pretty, you work with and is close to, where are we missing the mark on parking issues? What could we do better?
Sure. I think there's probably a lot of things we could do better. The gentleman that was seated previously was talking about looking at things holistically. I believe that in our communities, many times it's the neighbors that know their area best, and to look at things holistically in a community. You know, Hub is great when you're going to submit one complaint here or there, but it's very transactional. But neighborhoods as a whole know their communities best. And, you know, we have a list this long of traffic calming requests that aren't being satisfied. We have hundreds of Hub requests that aren't being satisfied. How do you prioritize those? I think that we should look at some solutions on ways that those can be prioritized.
I'm specifically asking about parking, if there are parking ideas for where we can do better with parking.
I think enforcement is one. There are all too often times when there is very little to no enforcement of cars that are parked illegally, Uber drivers that are literally parked in a travel lane, that are creating a safety risk for the pedestrians and other drivers, and no one's to be seen to enforce. You know, you all spend a lot of time creating policy, as does NDOT. Without any enforcement, those policies aren't working.
And you started that neighborhood association in
Yes,
Midtown.
yes.
Not just the unofficial president, you were the...
Thank you. The founder. Yes. Councilmember.
I was just going to offer an endorsement of Lisa, because I got to work with her as we were starting our new term, or kind of finishing our last term, starting our new term with Neighbor to Neighbor, when Lisa was board chair, and the Good Neighbor Day Festival came to Hermitage, and so I was one of the kind of committee members, and so, you know, it was well attended. People really loved it. I think it opened people's eyes to, you know, we can produce things like that in our community. And so, anyway, I definitely support her in this position, and I think she'll dig in and do a good job of kind of providing insight that will be valuable.
Thank you, Councilman.
Anything further from the committee? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? Got 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for your service and support.
You know, I was almost with Homestead Villages. Gary offered the EVP position. I'd like to touch base with you. We have an overlapping organization. Yeah, I know. Back in the 90s.
Councilmember? Oh,
Yeah,
my
I know.
God.
Yes.
Wanted to go to San Francisco.
Yes.
One of his former companies.
That was a good decade.
That was a long time ago. I remember it like yesterday.
Please
right?
don't tell me if you weren't born by then. Just don't want
Yeah, I don't want to hear that.
anyone in this room.
Yeah. Okay, next we have the Traffic and Parking Commission appointment of Lynn Meng for a term expiring on April 3rd, 2026. Thank you for being here. Would you like a parking validation? Yeah. Okay. Are you currently a Davidson County resident?
Yes.
And Dr. Meng, do you, or Davidson County, do you serve on any other boards or commissions other than what you're being appointed to here today?
No.
Okay, perfect. So tell us why you want to serve.
Sure. So I'm an assistant professor at Vanderbilt University. I do research on urban green infrastructure, urban climate, and the environmental impact of built infrastructure. One of the projects that we did is to look at parking lot in the largest 100 cities in the U.S. to look at like how many parking lots are there, how large they are, and the environmental impact of them. Specifically, we look at the urban heat island and the heat stress from parking lot. And we found because parking lots are mainly made of concrete or asphalt, so they retain and store a lot of heat and they contribute to heat island. And we have an ongoing project to look at road surface temperature in Nashville and road degradation under climate change. So my goal is to integrate this scientific finding and scientific research into practical urban planning to support decision-making in strategy in traffic and parking in Nashville. And I would like to learn more about the work that has been done here in Metro and what is the need, and then we'll develop a research project to fill that need, to have this data-driven decision-making to help create a more sustainable and resilient city.
That is some amazing work and research that you're doing. I'm curious if any of the research and work that you've been doing as it relates to climate change and us experiencing more severe weather events as climate change continues to progress. If you've done any research on how our current infrastructure, as it relates to a lot of surface parking and things like that, how we're able to sort of continue to develop and mitigate the effects of climate change.
Sure. A lot of the infrastructure that were built are based on this temperature threshold that was determined like 30 or longer years ago. But as climate is changing more rapidly, so sometimes the temperature will go beyond that temperature range, and then the infrastructure will get degraded sooner than expected. And also, there's more extreme event, like extreme heat and drought and like urban flooding and extreme precipitation. And those all have like unexpected impact on infrastructure at different extent. So I see first we need to better understand what climate will get in the future, and then plan accordingly and proactively to have strategy and plan to prepare all the infrastructure for future climate scenarios.
Perfect. Thank you for that answer. I very much appreciate it. Anything from the committee? Vice Chair.
So I hear and respect what you're saying about surface parking and the impact on climate change and the environment. I think we have a lot of drivers who haven't gotten the memo yet. So like, what can we do? I mean, if the need is still there, but what can we do that we haven't done to dissuade people from driving, especially alone in a car?
Sure. So one work we do is we use model to simulate different parking reform scenarios to have greener parking. So like there's a permeable surface, we can add tree cover, we can add grass, or we can make the parking surface highly reflective, so they can like absorb and retain less heat and they stay cool during summer. And those strategies don't reduce the areas of the parking lot, but they make parking more sustainable and environmental friendly.
Gotcha. I'm the council member for Vanderbilt. Do you think Vanderbilt has done some good things in that regard?
Well, so right now we have some pilot site at Vanderbilt campus, and we're measuring the temperature of the parking lot, and we're working with our facility team trying to come up with some pilot experiments to reform those parking lot to see like what's the climate and environmental benefit of reform parking on campus.
Of what parking?
Reform, like improve parking on campus.
Thanks.
Anything further from the committee? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? Got 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Thank you, Dr. May.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, next we have board and commission confirmations. These are folks that we interviewed previously. I will go ahead and ask if there's anybody on here that we need to remove because we'll take them up as one vote.
Yeah, I'm sorry about y'all.
All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and read them into the record. First, we have the CATV Special Committee reappointment of Tim Garrett, the Emergency Commission District Board reappointment of Dr. Carol B. Tucker, as well as the National Education, Community, and Arts Television Board reappointment of Shauna Lynn Bradmeyer. Having read those into the record, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Okay, and then we're going to go back in our agenda briefly.
We heard that.
To bills on second reading, we've got BL 2025-688, an ordinance to amend Chapter 2, the .147 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws regarding the Nashville Music, Entertainment, and Film Commission. Sponsors Poveda, Prepteat, Tunes, Evan Siegel, Vogue, Porterfield, and CAP. Seeing folks here. First, we will go to Councilmember Sepulveda.
Thank you. Move for approval. Just to get it on the floor.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. It is properly before us. Madam Pro Tem.
Thank you, Chair Preti. Just to refresh everyone on this legislation, just a quick overview. The legislation renames, well, let me start from the very beginning. This came out of the working group that we have started to look at all boards and commissions. Again, the working group is made up of several members throughout Metro, legal, finance, human relations commission, myself, Director Darby. The whole idea with the working group is to make this process better for commissioners, for staff. A survey went out to commissioners in the beginning and staffers. The reason these meetings are not televised is to get a sense, an accurate sense from both commissioners and staffers as to their real thoughts as to how to make this better for everyone. So at the end of the day, as these pieces of legislation come before the council, the idea is, will this make the board and commission better for everyone, right? We can only recommend something. It's up to the council to decide if this is a decision we would like to, approve. So what's before you is a renaming of the board and commission. This was a recommendation made by the commission itself. It's to align more closely with the Tennessee Entertainment Commission. It clarifies various definitions used in the section. It reduces the membership from 19 members to 15 members. Currently, it is 19 members, including 4 ex officio members. Best practices we found were between 7 and 11 voting members, and we found this through the survey itself. Voting members, this provides diversity of opinion to reach consensus. When we shrink this board, if this passes, it will happen over time. None of the current commissioners will lose their seats. It fixes unusable language related to hiring authority for the executive director. A copies process is used in the recently created Contract and Compliance Board. If you all remember, the mayor is the hiring body for the Contract and Compliance Board, and the chair of the Contract and Compliance Board is able to sit in on the interviews. If this passes, there would be a similar process to make sure that the board is able to have, a say in the hiring process. And it does not create any subcommittees. So that's the quick rundown of the legislation as is.
Okay, so we've heard an explanation of the substantive legislation that is before us. Before we move to the substitute, is there any discussion from the committee on the legislation as it is before us?
I got a quick question.
Vice Chair.
Councilmember Spolta, you said it doesn't create subcommittees. Does it preclude the creation of subcommittees?
No.
That's all I wanted.
And then former Councilmember Rosenberg, we want to provide you an opportunity if you wish to speak to this legislation as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave Rosenberg with the Mayor's Office. Appreciate Councilmember Sepulveda's explanation. That's exactly right. The legislation addresses the fact that right now the language around appointing authority is absolutely untenable, in that it splits authority for supervising between, or it's unclear, between the mayor's office and the commission. Also is silent on staff how it would be handled. The legislation, there are two directions you can go from that. You can either create a new metro department under which the director would exist without metro support, or do much what the Contracting Compliance Board does, which is have the commission be an active participant in the hiring process with the ultimate decision from the mayor. The reason subcommittees came up, I think, was a reference to the fact that the substitute, which we'll get to, I won't speak on, but it creates a very unique and guardrail-less situation. And then those are really the most important things there. Basically, we're looking for an opportunity for the commission to be able to move forward with its work, have a director, and Councilmember Sepulveda's bill is the best chance for that to happen.
Sounds good. And then what I want to do now is, Chair Evans, I'll probably go to you to move the substitute so that we can get it before us for purposes of discussion.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. So I see that you are a sponsor on the substitute, but you wanted to defer to Councilmember Stiles.
Yes, I would.
Okay, Councilmember Stiles, you're recognized to discuss your substitute.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I appreciate you all bearing with all of the reminders. So for those of you that were here before, you remember we passed this legislation back in 2023. We created this commission in June. We got it fully appointed in August, and they were supposed to begin their work. It has been a very difficult road for them working with the system as it exists. The substitute allows them to retain hiring power. This commission was carefully curated to put people on it that understand the industry, what the needs are, specifically for this city. There is no one else that has that ability that is trying to take this away from them. What we heard unanimously, and Councilmember Allen mentioned in Arts, Parks, Libraries, and Entertainment, was that the meeting she went to in the last term, she constantly heard people wanted consistency. It is why iterations of this have failed in the past, whether it was a film commission, whether it was the Music City Music Council. A new mayor comes in, they don't necessarily care about art, and it falls apart. Or they appoint someone that doesn't know what they're doing. And so what we would like to have is consistency. And I have referenced Memphis in the past. There is one woman who runs the Memphis office. She has been there for 25 years. When ABC, Netflix, NBC comes to town, they go directly to her for in-town incentives, to work on state incentives with Bob Raines. It's a system. And it has not mattered who has been the mayor. And that is what the creative community wants here in Nashville. And what is happening right now is we're trying to make it political. We are trying to make it exactly what the entire community, over 2 years of work, very clearly said they do not want. And now we are trying to be convinced that it's justified One, it went through legal last term with the language that it currently has. The previous mayor, he was fine with it. This mayor isn't fine with it, so now we have to come up with reasons for why we should make it make sense for him. I don't know why he's so interested in this entertainment commission, but he is. There are 117 applicants right now. It's unheard of for this position of executive director. And while we are doing this amongst ourselves, they have been given a list of names. They have already started the process. They have started having meetings to whittle down who has government experience, who has operational experience. They are working the process as they should. They are working in conjunction with Director Hall. In the substitute, it calls for them to work with Director Hall. It would be unfortunate that we disregard constituents, the needs of a community that we are not over, and many are not very versed with, to defer to a mayoral administration with no experience in this, and to say, we know best, based on a group that we do not get to hear from, we do not get to sit in on their meetings, because they have this backroom conversation, and then we suddenly get presented with legislation to change things without having any input. I don't think that's fair to constituents either. And I've said this before, I think Councilmember Prep Teach should be on with Councilmember Sepulveda as she started the work, and it should be open, and we should all be able to sit in and listen to the musings and how we get here, because we appoint these people to the commissions, and we remove people from commissions. So for us not to be included doesn't make a lot of sense. And everyone who has a vested interest in this working group is telling you best practice is 7 to 11 members. Where did that come from? It's never been provided. I asked that question in the last meeting. The survey that supposedly went out to 7 people on this commission because not everyone was on the commission at the time. Some people said that they never received the email. The chair of the commission is here, the vice chair of the commission is here, and 2 commissioners are here to speak to what this process has been like for them and how we, while we are doing this amongst ourselves, we are holding up progress. There are several major projects that are coming to town that we need an executive director for. And there are 117 people waiting for this thing to even get going. So the longer we take, the more we are hemming up a process that this office will generate revenue. In other cities, it brings in revenue. So we're holding up the process for this commission, we're slowing up revenue, which I think quite frankly we could use and we need. So the advisory committees, forgive me. So in the original bill back in '23, it was to include all industries. I had to make a compromise. Compromise was to make this commission only film, TV, music, and a diversity council. So those 3 councils, there are 15 people that can serve on those 3 councils. If we minimize the number, that's more work for them. The legislation, as I shared before, they gave the suggestion of changing the name. There was also some other cleanup language that was suggested. There is a lawyer that is sitting on this commission. It was sent to Mr. Brown in the mayor's office, who is their representation. And then the legislation that you received that we were told came all from them was a lot of it from the working group. So the suggestion of the mayor taking the hiring back, the minimizing of the numbers was never conveyed to them, never brought to them after they submitted legislation, and then just presented to us as fact, and a lot of it was fiction. So I'm hoping that today we can right the ship, we can allow them to move forward. This substitute does pull it out of the mayor's office, so we don't have to keep having that conversation about things in the mayor's office where the mayor doesn't have control over it. This would make it its own independent department, yes. There is one position right now, that's the executive director, but there is money in the budget that we set aside last year for a coordinator to be hired, which would help with administrative duties. So, and the executive director can hire that individual. So the idea that it's not possible for this one department to survive is also false. Director Hall was in the hallway and shared that it's not impossible, just something she'd prefer not to do. So with that, I would love if the chair or the vice chair, Gordon, or Chair Butler would be able to share with you what their experience has been like at your wheelchair.
We're going to go to the pro tem and then to the chair.
Yes, because I have an announcement at 6. So just to address a couple of things, Director Hall did speak at the Apple Committee and did raise concerns in regards to a Department of One being created, right? Because it's going to take some time to hire the coordinator and go through that process. So essentially, they would be their own HR. They would have to do payroll. They would have to do trainings until a coordinator is hired. And she found that that would be essentially difficult for them to be able to run on their own. The legislation was worked on for a very long time. But I will say it wasn't a smooth process, right? It did take quite a while. And the commission has stated that they do not want to be, at the whim of a administration or a future administration. But there has been issues when a commission has been in charge of hiring an executive director, right? We have had executive directors who have been hired by commissioners, and it has not been a smooth process. That is also a political nightmare, and it can be. And it has been an issue for the Arts Commission, to say the least, because there has been turnover there as well. So it's not a smooth process when it is done the other way around as well. So I don't know. I would caution us when we say that as well. The only department that I would say where we need to make sure that we keep it the way it is, where the commission keeps hiring authority, would be the Human Relations Commission, because that board does do investigative practices across Metro. But we know that the mayor has HR to rely on. I'm sure that Mayor O'Connell doesn't know everything about water and everything about every specific department. None of the mayors have. But we rely on the HR department to be able to provide insight as to what is needed to hire an executive director. There is also a problem with the subcommittees. When we don't have them come before the Rules Committee, when we don't have the requirement that they live within the county, when we don't have them be required to live by the ethics requirements that the rest of the commissioners are required to live by, I think that creates difficulties and bad precedent for future boards and commissions going forward. So I would caution us against that.
Thank you, Pro Tem. Chair Jones.
Thank you, Chair. So I know one of the sticking points is the size of the board, going from 19 to 15. Currently, do we know how many meetings has this commission had so far?
Answering Max Butler to the chair. Tomorrow morning will be our 14th meeting.
14th meeting. And what's the attendance at these meetings?
86%. I have a spreadsheet. I didn't update it on the last one, but everybody was there except one person that had a medical issue.
So 19 people are not consistently showing up at the meetings?
Can I
Yeah, you can clarify.
We haven't had, so there are 4 members that are ex officio, right? 2 of those people have never shown up because one of them is Metro Arts Commission Executive Director and the other is MNPS. And that person didn't get assigned for a while because that position was in flux as well. And they've declined the invitations. I don't remember how long that person's been, but Jamari Brown can speak to that. So I'm not including the ex officio members in that count, that percentage. We've had really, really good attendance. We haven't had an issue.
So I'm confused, I'm sorry. So does the 19 include the 4 ex officio?
Yes.
Okay. So the 15 show up every time?
We've had very good attendance. For a long time, we didn't have all of the 15, so we weren't having that many. But of the people that are on there now, I think we're at 86. But I'll find that spreadsheet when I got here.
And Councilmember Stiles.
Thank you again, Chair. As far as the advisory committees, so when this legislation was passed, the original intention was for it to include all of the entertainment industries that are taking place here in Nashville, but ultimately ended up being film, TV, music, and then we have a diversity council. So these advisory committees would allow for the additional industries to have a seat at the table. So in the substitute, theater and also fashion are included, so that one member from the commission would be able to sit on that subcommittee and bring the issue to the greater body, so that we're not sitting here trying to create a theater commission and a fashion commission and all of these things. This enables us to be able to address those issues. And as we like to touch legislation after it's passed and go back and forth, if that's a thing that needs to be looked at, if they need to come here, so be it. But the existence of subcommittees where this commission is allowed to interact with those individuals from those industries, that would be needed.
And then I did want to go back to the Arts Commission Chair if you wanted to.
Just a couple things real quick. Regarding the survey that was mentioned as a evidence for the bill as presented by Councilmember Sepulveda, that was sent out in July, and at that point I think we had 11 or 12 members and 7 people did respond. Some people didn't see it. It looked kind of like spam, and I saw it because I'm meticulous about that kind of stuff, but some people didn't see it. And of that, the survey data, 2% of the entire 230 people that were surveyed said they would like they thought their board should be smaller, right? That's 5 people out of 230 people that serve on boards and commissions said that their board should be smaller. I'm a volunteer. We're volunteers. I've been here for like 2 hours today. I'm supposed to be at work. I don't want to do more work, right? We have a system that's set up, but we haven't been able to function because of all of this and a number of things. And if we're going to reduce the number of people on here, that's just like putting more work on us for free. Again, more free labor for the city. I'm here to do the work, and I'm happy to. Right now, we've got a false choice. We've got either the administration's bill or Councilman Stiles' bill. What I would have loved to have is have this discussion before anything was filed, but we didn't have that discussion. This would have saved all this time. Councilmember Syracuse, former Councilmember Syracuse, serves on this commission, and in the commission, on the public record, he said that his intent in the line about this being under the mayor's office was based on where the actual office was. It had nothing to do with who was hiring. You can ask him, it was said on the record. So the intent of the original legislation that was vetted by Metro Legal and passed by this board had it so that we would be the hiring authority. I like this mayor. I'm a big fan, actually. But it's based on history that we don't want this to be subject to changing administrations. Office of Special Events, Film and Special Events, been around since 1993. Started with 3 people. First administration change, everybody got fired. I talked to those people that worked in that first office to find out about this, to learn more about it. Next administration, those people got fired. It went down to 1 person. And then that person got turned into a half FTE job and pushed into NDOT. So I've got a lot more I could probably say, but if you have questions, I'm probably better at that.
From Councilmember Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks to Chair Butler. He is putting a lot of time and into not just the work of the commission, but also the conversation around the legislation. Councilmember Capps spoke to, in the last committee, the value in spinning up an office from the mayor's office because of the support you get across departments by being able to coordinate from there versus a standalone department of one where you're basically out in the woods on your own. The Office of Youth Safety is an example of something being set up in that way, where the idea is to incubate, grow the office, and then allow it to become its own. We saw it, I think, most recently with the Office of Family Safety. So there's a lot of opportunity there. The current legislation is untenable. The mayor didn't decide that. That was Metro Legal. Metro Legal does not typically review council-filed legislation for it being legally perfect. We really risk and are setting the commission up for failure if they are out on their own, and as Director Hall noted, the director ends up spending most of their time doing their own payroll, their own administrative work, their own budgeting for their own department on top of doing all the work to support the commission and not getting to do the substantive work. The subcommittee issue is challenging because these are members who will, the legislation doesn't state who's going to appoint the members, so we don't know where that comes from. They're not vetted or confirmed by the council. They don't have to live in Davidson County or really have any connection. It says they have to work in Davidson County, but not any substantive amount of time. And then even though they're subject to Metro's standard of conduct, they don't have to file disclosures like board and commission members do, which is especially, I think, concerned in this type of industry where there would be a lot of, or there are a lot of close relationships, and there could be an effort to promote something for a friend, and this would also not be subject to the jurisdiction of the Board of Ethical Conduct. So they're out there being created and on this. And just with respect to the working group makes recommendations to the mayor. The mayor has lots of different groups who he works with on different issues, from housing to community safety and so on, where he takes their recommendation and decides what kind of legislation to file. And this legislation went through the same process of any administration legislation, where it's presented to him and he makes a decision about how and what to file, while listening to the voices of experts. So I just wanted to make sure that that was accurately reflected. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, I guess from my vantage point, I think couple of the biggest challenge that I've had related to kind of this piece of legislation is really the history, because of the effort and the conversations amongst Councilmember Syracuse, Swope, Stiles, to even get us to the point where we had this commission. And then from a working group perspective, I don't really love the transparency factor. I don't think it's been transparent. I think that there should have been more routine communication to all of us about the working group and kind of the deliberative aspects of it. I don't love that this is a commission that has not done their forming in a more publicly available way. Recording, not recording, I can't make it to their meetings. I would listen to all of them and I think that would probably provide a little bit more context. I also think that if we think about like the number of people that have applied to be the director, if I were one of those candidates and I learned of this dialogue that there was this immediate interest in kind of reducing the size and making substantive changes, I'd be really concerned about being a strong candidate or continuing in the process, just as a thought kind of related to that. Maybe we have people that are more tenacious and not looking at some of these conflicts, but it would be a concern if I were a candidate. And I feel like ultimately this is a conversation that should go back to the commission related to both pieces of legislation and reconvene on this in order to move forward. Because I know from my experience, as a peer of the mayor, I don't remember him being very strongly kind of aligned or interested in this. And so I have just a general concern about kind of that continuity and the through lines that we're always talking about. And so that's kind of why I signed on to the substitute, is because I'm like, I'm not sure that I'm a fan of like making this one of the early ones to reduce without having all of the context. And so that's why I'm in support of the substitute. I don't know if it'll go anywhere, but at the same time, I think it's a real lesson in how are we talking about making these reductions and who are the stakeholders that we're involving. And even from a survey perspective, you know, we're not appointing like Joe Blow to this commission. We're appointing like really serious people, and not that other people are not serious for other commissions, but these are people that are actively involved in this industry, and so I feel like we need to demonstrate more respect to their positions.
And just very quickly, because I can appreciate Chair Evans' position, I just wanted to state that as far as transparency, I have been working on trying to schedule a meeting for council as a whole to get an update on the progress of the working group. It's been my scheduling that's been the main conflict for getting that on the books. So so that is on me. So just taking full ownership of that. But yeah.
Just real quick, because I have announcements and there's packed announcements today. Thank you, Councilmember Evans, for that input. And I do want to say that I do appreciate all the commissioners and all the work that they put in. You know, having done a lot of work on boards and commissions, even from last term, you know, it's very difficult to get good people who volunteered their time, a diverse group of voices from different industries to come to the table, and you know, making sure that it's not the same people over and over again, right? And Councilmember Stiles has been helpful in making sure that we have been able to do that. The surveys went out through the emails that were given through the Metro clerk when people came before us and applied, right? And those are the emails that we have and that they went out to. Again, the reason that, you know, these aren't public notice meetings are to make sure that we have, you know, honesty from both commissioners and staffers, especially in the beginning stages. We want to make sure that they are telling us what is wrong, what can we do better. The worry is if these are very public, that we won't have that. You know, I didn't include everything that was specifically said in the survey comments because a lot of that is very, very personal and goes very much into detail. So when I wrote that first blog post regarding it, I didn't go into detail because you can probably figure out who some of those commissioners are. And if we're going to make this process better, then we have to make it better. Now, if there is a specific reason to keep this body at that size, make the case and it could be revisited, right? But I would counter the argument, you know, if I was applying for this job and I found out that I would have to do my own payroll and do all of the trainings, I wouldn't want that job. You know, I'd be concerned. I'd say, you know, that's not what I thought I was signing up for with this substitute. I gotta go to announcements, but I would encourage you all to vote no on the substitute.
Dr. Weiner.
So, I've made some notes because I've studied this. I've read the notes that we got from former Councilmember Rosenberg. I've read and kept up with both of my colleagues. And here's where I stand. And it's, I guess, complicated a little bit for me. Number one, I have having served on the Fair Board, having been in this body for a minute, when you have standards that have been set for our boards and commissions, I am very uncomfortable changing those standards and having different applications for a subcommittee. I don't think that that speaks to what we intend. So that's thing number one. Thing number two, I do have an issue with closed meetings in government, especially in the case that has been alluded to that you have sensitive information that's going to be shared. Send an anonymous letter or send a surrogate to come in and speak. about the issue, and you can retain your anonymity and not have to worry about putting yourself out there. And I get that, but there are other ways around that. Operationally, that's what I do day in and day out with hospital systems and with large medical groups and even one-off offices. And the issue of having a one-person office controlling everything concerns me. So the last thing that I have a good amount of heartburn over is the reason that is given for reducing this particular board or commission. We're not a one-size-fits-all government. The Fair Board needs a certain number of people. If we had too few, then we had quorum problems. If we have too many, sometimes 7, 8, or 9 people is not a bad number to have. Sometimes 11 is not a bad number to have. When you have an industry that is represented by a myriad of what's the word I'm looking for? A myriad of different entities, you know, music, art, film, theater, dance,
Industries.
all of it. To arbitrarily limit it because we don't want that many as a rule, that's discomforting to me. That's probably the one thing that gives me the most heartburn, is because it seems arbitrary. So clearly, I don't like either one of them. And I can't support, frankly, I can't support either one of them for those reasons.
I know.
And so I'm sitting here thinking, why can't they just sit down and hammer it out and not make us choose bad versus badder? Like that, English? So that's where I am right now.
That's the same with me. Ditto. Couldn't have said better.
Councilmember Stiles.
Thank you so very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Councilmember Weiner. Feel free to vote no on both. You're good to go. But I think some of the concerns that were mentioned, the arbitrary nature of this, Councilmember Evans has spoken to, you know, what if there had been a conversation? Sheriff Butler said the same thing. I think it's absolutely reasonable that once the legislation was submitted, there's a lawyer that sits on this commission. He sent that information over to Jamari, and then it was sent to me. I actually put it on your desk, I think it was 2 meetings ago, the original legislation, so you could see what was submitted from the commission. The working cabal then came together and then put their own things on it and never turned around and said, hey, thank you so much for your suggestions, but this is what we'd like to add to it. And you're absolutely right, that is what should have happened. Whether they liked it or not, at least have a conversation. And I think the lack of transparency in doing that is also concerning. I was hoping that you would be able to hear from the other individuals that how this has impacted them. But again, this has been a very, very long process. When you look at, Vice Chair Gordon mentioned in the Arts Committee that trying to get this together goes back to former Mayor Purcell and the different iterations that took place to finally have legislation that came forth and was voted on in 2023, to have it attempted to be snatched away and to ignore what the constituency group has said works for them, would work for this city over decades of experience that we don't have. What message are we sending to constituents? And to Council Member Evans' point, I would be concerned if I applied if I heard what happened after the job had been announced. That's when this legislation was filed, taking this hiring power away from them. If this is what the mayor wanted, he could have done this a year ago right now, but he didn't. He waited until this job had been posted, they had closed, and then we have legislation in January, and we would have to assume that we're stupid if we can't see timing. So I would just ask if you could support the substitute, or if you just abstain, I'd be good with that either.
We're going to go Chair Toombs, Dr. Weiner, and then Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Chair. So I kind of am along the same lines as Councilwoman Weiner. I don't support the substitute. I don't think any board or commission outside of human relations should be hiring their own executive director. That is a sticking point for me. I think the mayor should be hiring who's in charge of our boards and commissions and departments. And it's up to that mayor to have the people who have the expertise to advise him or her on that. I definitely think that boards and commissions that have particular expertise should have an input in who's the executive director. I don't know if the 15 versus 19, I don't have a dog in that fight. I don't know which number is better, because I'm hearing from members of the commission that they like the 19, they want to keep it the way it is. But then I also, which is why I'm a sponsor on this legislation, I support the work of the working group. I'm reforming boards and commissions is a topic that is important to me. It's as chair of the Minority Caucus, it's been a topic that's important to the caucus in terms of reforming boards and commissions in the way that they're more diverse. So I'm very vested in the work of the working group. I don't think we should poo-poo on their work. I think that they work hard. They're doing what they think is best. So I don't think that anyone taking time out of their day to make something better should be criticized for that. So I can't get with the substitute because it keeps the executive director being hired by the commission. It keeps the 19. I don't know if 19 or 15 is the right number, so that's why I'm kind of on the side of maybe deferring the original legislation so that there can be some more discussion. I understand the point about wanting to create an environment where folks feel like they can say what they really think without it being recorded or on television. So I think with that, I'm a no on the substitute, but I would be in favor of a deferral on that first original legislation.
I was going to move a one meeting deferral.
That is a proper
Because
motion.
I don't think it's ready.
Yeah.
That is a proper motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Right, we are not.
Can I ask a question? So we're on the substitute, so are we?
It's a superseding motion.
What now?
It's a superseding motion. So we are. It's been properly moved and seconded. I do see hands up for discussion on a deferral. Well, I'm going to go to Director Darby.
I just want to say what a one meeting deferral does. A one meeting, this has been re-referred to committee. The committees have already deferred it one time, so it's already been deferred by rule. This will again be deferred by rule on the floor, so there will not be any discussion if this deferral motion passes. Additionally, the ordinance has been deferred 3 times already. A fourth deferral, which is what this would be converted automatically into an indefinite deferral, which means it has to stay off of the agenda for 60 days. Once it is requested to be put back on the agenda, and it would be a request to put it back on the agenda, it will be automatically bumped for 1 additional meeting. Just want to make sure those are out there.
With that explanation, I'm going to go back to you, Chair Wiener, or Dr. Wiener.
For me, and I think for several colleagues here, and I don't want to speak for anybody, we have the choices that we have right now are just not good. The choices that we have, if we pick the substitute, provides some what I consider slippery slope issues, and I don't think that we can afford to do that. At the same time, if we vote for the original bill, there's some pieces in there that I think are potentially wholly unfair and questionable insofar as the industry itself. And in good conscience, I would rather have somebody bring me a fully vetted proposal that is going to work for the long term so that we don't have to keep coming back and putting Band-Aids on things, which is going to upend their work. And I'd rather get it right at the outset. I wish that these things had been dived into a little deeper early on with greater discussion. We don't have to do things fast, y'all. We should do them right, and we should do them comprehensively. And I know I'm gonna tick off a lot of people, but I'm gonna stand with my motion.
Okay, the
For
motion.
those reasons.
What was your motion?
The motion is properly before us. It has been seconded. We are on discussion of a one meeting deferral, which would in effect be an indefinite deferral. I'm gonna go to Councilmember Stiles, then.
Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate all of the conversation that has been had. Thank you to all of the commissioners for staying here for as long as you have. Transparency, biggest thing. Lack of it, maybe that gets fixed because, again, we've put a spotlight on it, but if we hadn't, it'd just be going on as it started. There are 117 applicants right now. We're not rushing. We were thrown a piece of legislation to rescind the rights of a commission that we worked really hard on for 2 years. It's not based in, it makes no sense. I don't know how legal suddenly is wrong and that legal didn't look at it 2 years ago, but suddenly legal's looking at it. But there are 117 applicants for a position that we desperately need. There have been many kerfluffles with this commission that we haven't even begun to discuss in this process of even getting to this point. Before you all make a decision to make a deferral that makes it indefinite, that pushes us back for 2 months, that wreaks havoc on this process. They have been waiting, they have been doing the work. This closed on December 31st. It is now mid-March. So now we're gonna push it 2 more months. We're talking about optics. This looks really, really bad. That we posted a job and now we're holding it up because suddenly council decided to get in and turn it upside down. If there is some way, and certainly we've had enough time to ask questions prior to today as well, I guess I'm just wondering, what recourse do we have come third reading? Is there, I want to ask and find out if there's something that we could possibly do so we could avoid this.
So I know Dr. Weiner has a parliamentary inquiry.
Parliamentary inquiry. If we make a substantial change to the language in the bill, can it come back sooner as something different so that we don't hit the whole issue of the indefinite deferral? Can we bring it back sooner if it's substantially different?
If there were substantial differences and a new bill were filed, I think that would probably be okay, but it would be something we'd look at before it
So
got
if we were
filed.
to fix the things that are in there and change a word, a name, is that considered substantial enough?
If you were to simply change a word, no.
I mean a name of the number,
name.
a
A
concept, a process.
Or even the caption.
Or the caption, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's something that I would want to look at to make sure that we're not trying to have 2 bills running at the same time, because we really ought not be doing that.
Yes, I've already put in for that, so.
Okay.
And before we move forward, I did want to give Vice Chair Gordon a chance to speak because I want to honor her time and take, wait. Oh, my apologies.
That's Gina.
Yes, but wanted to honor everybody's time and commitment to being here, so just wanted to give you the opportunity.
Thank you for including us or having us avail the opportunity to listen to this discussion, which has been needed prior to us ever getting into this room. My understanding, being appointed to the commission, is we would be the hiring authority. I understand your concerns. I have understood the concerns of other commissions that have had problems. I've been a part of the conversation, as we spoke earlier, since Mayor Purcell defunded the office, and it's taken this long to get us this far. Slow, it seems to be the way in which the process is going. We've been at this for 2 years and have been unable to really get a lot done. We've done our bylaws, we've done our job description, we submitted that to HR, they just wrote a new one. So we're not really able to act freely amongst ourselves. We have a wonderful support from Mr. Brown, and
he just doesn't have the bandwidth to make it an effective use of our time, not even to be able to communicate amongst ourselves. So we've tried to talk about the Open Meetings Act to try and redress that so we can communicate between meetings. That's been a lead balloon legislature this year, so it's another waste of time. I would implore you to not defer this another time, because it's just another way in which it slows us down. I don't think we can go to our commission meeting tomorrow and say, well, we have 117 people that have applied, let's just proceed with the mayor and come back and do that. I don't know if we're hamstrung now to be able to do any business. Does anybody have an opinion towards that they might be able to share?
Well, I'm gonna go to Mr. Rosenberg first. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Chair. We've tried to be very thoughtful and deliberate about the legislation that came here. It didn't come out of nowhere. I think this is the first time, I mean, as I recall, this council's made a lot of changes to boards and commissions over the years without going through a lengthy back and forth process with the board or commission in question. However, the issue with appointing authority was brought up at a commission meeting last May, so it's not new. As the working group's been talking about the number of members outside 7 to 11, it has been the process to go to the people staffing or surrounding a board and commission and ask if there's a business case for staying outside 7 to 11, in this case, well outside. And there was not a substantive answer to that. In fact, it was discussed at a commission meeting where the only objection they really brought up to this legislation was appointing authority. The working group's not randomly recommending to the mayor 7 to 11. It's thoughtful work. There's gonna be other legislation for other boards and commissions adjusting the size, and some of them are outside of 7 to 11 because that's what they've brought. Where we're at is the current legislation is untenable as written. The substitute creates a scenario where nothing's gonna happen and nothing is gonna get done. The change in numbers, I also want to be clear, doesn't mean anybody's getting kicked off the board or commission. As terms turn over time, there would be the opportunity for the appointing authority, sometimes council, sometimes the mayor, to only fill some of the seats. And more times than not, when there's turnover of a lot of seats of a board and commission at the same time, there are some members who aren't interested in continuing to serve. So there is nothing happening that's random here, that isn't well thought out, and that will not really serve Metro moving forward.
Thank you for that. From this point moving forward, I'm just going to recognize members of the committee. First, I'm going to go to Chair Evans, then Chair Toombs.
I just noticed that there was some physical reaction from some of the commissioners about some of the things that Mr. Rosenberg said, so can we hear from them about their feedback?
Very briefly, because we've got the full council starting in 9 minutes, but first I'm going to go to Chair Toombs.
So, thank you, Chair. So I have a question about the impact on a deferral on the hiring process for the executive director.
Is that a question to us?
I assume.
Right now, legal, Jamari Brown, Senior Director of Economic and Community Development for the mayor. Right now, legal views it as a dual hiring process, the way the language is currently set up. So there's a two-manager situation, which is why it's unattainable in order for us to go down that path, because you end up with the commission hiring the person, is the way the language currently reads, but it's sitting in the mayor's office, which the mayor has managerial oversight over his staff. And so that's the issue at hand, and that has been the issue that has been brought up to the commission before.
So if there were a deferral, would the commission and the mayor's office move forward with these 117 candidates to whittle them down and start interviewing and all that stuff?
I think that would be a difficult process because, again, if the commission has the hiring authority, the individual would feel I answer to the commission, but if the mayor and the commission gave competing orders, what would that executive director be charged with? Like, how could they carry out that duty?
So if there were a deferral, the ordinance as it is currently would stand, which creates that dual process. So if the commission wanted to move forward with their hiring process, they would have the authority to do so under current law.
Right, but the mayor would be the manager of that position.
Okay.
I know, I finished announcements.
What about us?
And then Chair, I'm gonna go to you, but I'm gonna try and limit it to 45 seconds.
Very quick. It's been 3 months since this application closed, like, these people might not be available, right? So, no offense, Jamari, but the administration already screwed up this process by putting out a job description that was not the one we approved. And they didn't talk to us about the salary that was posted. It's different than what was in our budget that we passed as a commission. So we've talked about pulling it back anyway, right? I can't even remember all the different things that were wrong from before. What were the, everybody, I don't think there's anybody on the commission that wants it to be smaller. That's something we discussed. We all unanimously approved the suggestions to the working commission. It was a unanimous vote. Everybody said yes. Almost all of our discussions in that way. We've had very few like anywhere close votes. We've been really working well together. And I don't remember the other thing that Mr. Rosenberg said that I was shaking my head about.
Okay, so the motion that is currently before us is for a one meeting deferral, which has the effect of being an indefinite deferral for 60 days. Is there any further discussion from the committee on the motion for a one meeting deferral? All right, seeing none, I'm gonna go ahead and take a vote on this motion, and I'm gonna do it by show of hands. So those in favor of a one meeting deferral. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Is it as substituted or?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna.
I want to.
I'm abstaining.
You haven't asked the no's.
Okay, so 2 abstention. Well, I'm. Those against.
I want the executive director hired. I want it as mine. Not as substituted, but.
Anyway.
Okay, so the vote on the one meeting deferral is 4 in favor, 1 against, 3 abstaining. So I do believe that prevails.
Indefinite?
That has the effect of an indefinite deferral.
But
So
it
that
can be
means.
brought, it can be brought back under different conditions, change the caption.
Yes and no.
Together and fix it.
But they can continue the process.
Yeah, we still have
as
one
it
more.
is, and you guys can whittle
Wait,
and
Tom.
continue figuring it
Yeah,
out.
objection.
All right, moving forward. Last item on the agenda is a proposed rule change to Rule 9.3 by sponsors Huffman and Horton. Rule 9.3: all ordinances on first reading shall be considered by council in one vote. An ordinance on first reading may be considered separately if 2 or more members notify the vice mayor of their desire to take a separate vote on the ordinance. And I do see that there is an amendment. Well, do we have a motion on the rule?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. That there is an amendment before us. Do we have a motion on the amendment?
So moved. Second.
Moved and properly seconded. The amendment is now before us. Councilman or Vice Chair Huffman, you are recognized for your.
Thank you. I'll be extremely brief. The amendment does 2 things, and it was what we highlighted last time. First, it allows a main sponsor to remove an item from first. A very good example of that would be just if there's a zoning matter that needs to be pulled. I think actually Councilmember Toombs had an item last meeting that fit that criteria exactly. And then second, it just clarifies the language in which an item would be requested, and that's at first reading. So there's no change, but there was some confusion on that, so I just clarified that in the amendment.
Okay, we have heard the explanation. Any discussion, Vice Chair?
I'm not sure what you said about the second thing. What is the second?
Just that the request to remove something off first reading will come at the same time that it does now.
On the floor.
That's right. Yeah, there was some confusion to whether it should happen before the meeting.
Right, no, I remember, and that's why I'm asking, because I want to see that that's what's being fixed.
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote on the amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. So now we are on the rule as amended. Any discussion on the rule as amended?
No.
Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I think we have more to discuss.
Yeah, without objection, we do now stand adjourned.